Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Raised Crossing webinar series that we've got going for you. So it is a four-part series. Today we have the lovely Hafez joining us, and he's going to tell us about the why of raised crossings. And Bridget is also joined us. Give us a wave, Bridget. Thank you. And Bridget will be moderating today's session. So lots of familiar, I was going to say familiar faces, but maybe familiar names in the participant list today. So many of you have already been to one or more of our Safe System Solutions training courses. So I think you know the drill. But basically, this is the webinar version, and it just means that you can ask, we can't hear you or see you, but you can ask questions via the chat or the Q&A function, and we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the program. Bridget will monitor those in the background and get Hafez to answer them throughout the session. As we said, the more challenging, the better. My name's Kathy. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself, and I'm the training manager at Safe System Solutions. So I look after organising all the training along with the team here. And yeah, we're just absolutely rapt to bring this great topic that is of great interest and a fantastic program in general to everybody. So I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional landowners of all the lands that we are in or on today, and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. And I think we might be ready to go. Hafez, over to you.
And over to Bridge to have a quick intro. And this is the first session for this year, so we're just like, brushing all the learnings of the last year. So
yeah, it's great to have you all here, and great to have this Trans-Tasman collaboration up and running again. Kia ora koutou, ko irihai toku iwi, no kiri roa aho, ko Doran toku whānau, ko Bridget toku ingoa. I am Bridget, and what I said is that my heritage is Irish, and it's English as well, but I had to pick one. Apparently Irish is cooler. And it's wonderful to be moderating here. So how this works is that we have four of us presenters, one for each webinar, and then we share the moderating around. So I'm moderating today for Hafez. And it's just such a pleasure because what a delight to throw you straight in the, not really the deep end, the fizzy end of the series with Hafez first up. So just to introduce Hafez to you all, his dedication to pedestrian safety extends beyond professional responsibility, rooted in personal experiences of surviving 2 pedestrian crashes in his childhood. Over a career spanning more than 2 decades, Hafez has significantly influenced the fields of road safety and active transport, culminating in substantial contributions to the Victorian government's Towards Zero strategy and action plan. One of Hafez's noteworthy accomplishments was his involvement in Victoria's largest pedestrian and cyclist safety infrastructure program, with over $100 million of investments. In this comprehensive initiative, he was instrumental in planning, designing, delivering and evaluating an array of pedestrian safety improvements, with a strong emphasis on crossing facilities such as wombat crossings, effectively enhancing pedestrian priority and safety. So currently the transport lead at HA Consulting, Hafez partners with a wide variety of organisations, both in Australia and internationally, constantly pushing the boundaries in road safety and sustainable mobility. His academic credentials are underpinned by a PhD from Monash University, where he conducted in-depth research into pedestrian safety and injury prevention. So, pretty great to have him here, and in the Why module today, Hafez is going to leverage this diverse experience and research knowledge and his outstanding presentation skills, which he hasn't even mentioned in that bio, to underscore the significance of raised crossings through a strategic lens. Welcome, Hafez.
Oh, thank you, Bridge. Can you please repeat that intro? It made me feel amazing. So can you see my presentation here?
Yep, you're all good to go.
Fantastic. So we did a recent research into pedestrian safety measures. We identified 54 different ways that you can improve pedestrian safety using different measures. And these are just speed and infrastructure. So just remember that when we focus here on wombat crossing or raised crossings, this is one element of the big picture. Hence my presentation today, which is about the why. So in my presentation and training aspect today, I'm going to give you the big picture. So when we delve into wombat crossing, please remember there are a gamut of interventions both systemic and institutional that you can do, and also policy. But I'm going to give you the big picture, and then we delve into like the how and the where and the who of the question later in this course. Also, I'm going to be asking one major question in this part of the training. And the question is, what approaches and frameworks do I have for strategizing for raised pedestrian crossings? Or you can use that question for developing active travel interventions, or pedestrian and cyclist safety interventions, or e-scooter interventions. You can use some of the learnings today to transcribe it for different elements of the system. But you know, this is wombat crossing. I'm going to be a bit more focused on wombat crossings. One of the things we want to urge you people to consider is mass action. So one wombat crossing is great, but it won't do the job. We want you to come out of this course and think about your urban area and urban settings, and think about mass action treatments to cover a whole area, or routes of pedestrians demand, or walking areas. So that's what we want to achieve. And the reason we're doing that is multifaceted. Let me bring the facets here and then I'll talk about them. So first of all, walking happens across an area, and walking is free. So you need to treat an area to provide for your pedestrians. If you do more solutions, you drive cost efficiency and economy of scale. This is what we have done in Victoria when we did around $100 million investment. It made us to do more and better. Also, it's more safe system compliant if you think about an area and route instead of locations per se. Also, you can create a better business case for action and convince your councillors or your decision makers or your departments to invest money, and also your community. Also, it's more inclusive and cohesive if you think area, because when you think area, you think about almost everything. We're going to have exercises today to go through elements of that whole system. And also, when you do areas, you do mass action, you need to consider wider societal concerns. And that's when you're dealing with your community, your businesses, your local stakeholders, your state stakeholders, and so on and so forth. Okay. The module today has 4 elements. We're going to be talking about why walking is important. Then we're going to wear a strategic lens and look at walking and tell you how we can strategize for pedestrian and walking activities, sort of, strategic action plans. We're going to share some strategic metrics that you can use in your business case developments. And we're going to have a quick practice, use the learnings in an exercise. Okay. So why walking is important? Million reasons. I've put them in 5 departments: economy, environment, health, society, and transport. And I'll quickly go through these for you, and then I have an exercise to start the exercise of today. So in terms of economy, with more walking, we're going to boost businesses, we're going to bring down societal costs in terms of maintenance and building more roads. It's going to be good for your environment in terms of air, noise, and climate actions. It's going to be better for your people in terms of their physical health and impact on their level of health in terms of trauma. It's going to be increasing social interactions, include old people, children, elderly, and also it's going to be creating mode shift from cars to more active travel and create more impact on injury prevention by safety in numbers. Now, first exercise. Think about other ways that you know or you feel that can help our society, our community, by increasing walking, improving pedestrianism, promote pedestrians. Put in chat room some of the other reasons you think walking can help us as a community. What's good about walking? Exactly. More connection to the community, yes. Social cohesion, exactly. Health and fitness of freedom. Yeah. Yeah. I really like it. So I think we are covering sort of the same departments, build communities.
There's
Yeah.
some big picture and some quite specifics in there, aren't there?
Shoe sales.
Good for the economy.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Beautiful.
Cool.
So I think we've got a really good picture. So we add like, a number of these here as well for your attention, like, also walking has been shown to help improve the sort of, value of properties. So if you live in a more walkable area, your property going to be valued more. It creates diversity and inclusiveness, as you mentioned. It's going to help a more attractive, colorful, and artistic neighborhood by creating more festivals and events. And our bridge here will be talking about some of these diversity and inclusiveness of more walking and walkable environment in her module. So stay tuned for that. So thank you for your contribution. Keep it coming. We have more exercises. Now, let's jump to mirror. And this is the first time in this course we're going to do the mirror exercise. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing my Prezo here, and we jump to the Miro board. We have put the Miro board link here. Kathy, thank you, in the chat room. Use the link, jump on the Miro, and we're going to tell you which slide you want to focus on. Lovely.
Looks like lots of people are in there.
Beautiful.
The link's in the chat if you're still not sure. And then
Perfect.
you zoom in and out with the scroll thing on your mouse, and you move around, hold the right mouse button down, and then you can move around.
I love the emoji of blown mind. I tell you, first time I used Miro, it blew my mind too. So what is the exercise? The exercise here is think about yourself and your loved ones, your close family and relatives, and think about all the reasons that might stop you from walking in terms of adopting more walking or starting to walk more, and tell us, what stops you? What are the blockers? And be free, think freely, any reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So I'm already seeing some logistic issues in terms of having appropriate footwear, or the distances are sometimes, long, but also we have some environmental factors, both in terms of climatic, weather can be not favorable, or environment in terms of having so many cars on the road. People talk about amenity and facilities. That's one of the reasons, main reason, that it stops people from walking. Like, there's one comment here which is very interesting. Too easy to jump in the car. Yes, our societies are designed to be easy to be driven, and it's just like we need to break that. Suppression from traffic. Thank you for your honesty. Laziness. Welcome to humanity.
Yeah.
And Bridget, mind wandering. That's another human aspect that you're going to talk about.
Did someone write that?
No, I just mentioned it.
Oh, right. Yeah, mind wandering's a positive reason to go for a walk, right? It allows us to daydream.
Immanuel Kant, hey? Philosophy.
Yeah.
So let me quickly do a really quick sort of, thematic analysis. So what we see here are human factors, infrastructure factors, and also some of them are more policy institutional, like creating barriers for walking. I want to also mention some of the elements of investments. So if you are a decision maker and you look at this, you need to change culture, you need to change infrastructure, you need to change policy, and sometimes create sort of some of those like, more active travel orientated sort of, interventions. So that's great. So let me quickly stop here. Have a quick, okay. So I want to share something that might be a bit confrontational here. This is a real story. So I'm going to share my slides here. Go back to my presentation. In 2013, in Victoria, we did a study or a parliamentary inquiry into the definition of serious injury. As a part of that, I investigated 10 or 11 serious injury cases in Victoria. This is one of those cases. So we had a young, healthy adult, 32 years old at the time, Sam, very upbeat, like having a family, like of 2 children, a wife, employer, like having like really good hobbies, a really good life happening. On the evening of the crash, he was taking the family dog out for a walk at this intersection. It's a 40K environment. He was hit by a car going 50. So the family dog died on the scene. He had a 50% chance of dying on the crash scene, at the crash scene. Like he had like contusion, concussion, broken arm, broken femur, dislocated elbow, laceration, like loss of blood at the crash scene, was transported to the hospital. Spent, if I remember correctly, 42 days in hospital and rehab after that. Had a year-long rehab. So we went to him at 6 months, because at the time we were doing some longitudinal studies about, bringing people back on track. At 6 months point, he said, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, like I have continuous pain, I have limb pain, I have stopped doing my work and my hobbies, my life is in shambles. In 12 months, his wife had left, he had lost the business, he had started gambling, and he was suicidal, having suicidal thoughts on a daily basis. So this is not a good life. We're gonna help Alex to come back on track, of course, but this course is about, one aspect of this course is about making like environment safer for pedestrians so we don't see these incidents. Okay. Having said like safety, so we have in Victoria and in other places across Australia and New Zealand adopted the safe system approach, which is based on 4 elements, which is about we human beings are vulnerable. In a confrontation with car, we're gonna lose. Also, we make mistakes. When our minds wander or when we're distracted, we are just vulnerable. Like, we're going to be making mistakes and be walking in front of a car, bad situation. And also, we want to live in a society that our health and well-being and the health and well-being of our kids and elderly parents, our sort of, less capable people or differently capable people is respected and prioritized. Also, we need to take responsibility. The majority of us here are either decision makers or practitioners. We have responsibility to provide that for our community. So that's great to acknowledge that responsibility. And I know we take it seriously. In the where module of this course, we're going to be dissecting this method from the Dutch approach. So you're going to learn more and more about this approach. Okay, what is a race crossing? But let me ask a question before we talk about what's a race crossing. Who is a pedestrian? Please put it in the chat room. Who is a pedestrian to you? So by who is a pedestrian, I mean, how do we define a pedestrian? Is it a person on feet? Is it a person in a wheelchair? What about e-scooter riders? Who is a pedestrian? You answered who can be a pedestrian. Everyone can be a pedestrian. But who is a pedestrian? Okay. Anyone not in the car? That's very inclusive. Cool. So let me quickly sort of do an analysis. So people talk about, it's not just about main roads, it's about off-road paths and different roads and footpaths. It's about everyone who is not using a car. So if they're not cyclists and they're not using a car or motorcycle, they are pedestrians. So that's inclusive. And people about talking about different capabilities and people who don't use motorized transportation. Fantastic. All of these are pedestrians. So we also gonna put something in the references about how we define pedestrians in Australia and New Zealand that can be quite helpful. Also, Bridge gonna be talking about that the who aspect of it. Okay, description of a race crossing: an elevated zebra or shared path or bicycle priority crossing that crosses the whole road and designed for accessibility is a race crossing. It is usually supported by signing, lighting, and road marking, but sometimes not everything is there. Characteristics: it does quite a few things. It raises pedestrians so we can see them better. It makes them more visible, especially if you put the lighting around them. It makes crossing easier, sometimes because we also narrow down the road, we elevate it, we make it like really accessible, DDA sort of friendly. And also it should include and be accessible for everyone. So these are some of the elements that we need to consider when we're designing. When we go into the how module of the course, we're going to be really going in detail how we design them. Cool. Let's go to another exercise, and this is sort of I call it a quiz, but it's not a quiz, it's more like a question. What do you call this facility? So we named them zebra crossing, raised pedestrian crossing, wombat, raised zebra, yep, raised safety platform crossing, wombat, fantastic, raised table. So the concept here is, this is the same concept, and we're going to be talking about this facility, and we have different names for it. That's okay. That's okay to have different names for it. But remember that when we talk about race crossing, we're going to talk about those description and such facilities. This one doesn't have, that priority crossing for cyclists, but you know what we're talking about. Okay. Let's have a look at this fun quiz. We talked about safety. We talked about how wombat crossing help us with safety. So this question is about, if we design and deliver a proper race crossing, what is the impact on serious injuries and road deaths on the road, and what percentage reduction can we expect? And the first correct answer gonna get a prize. Oh my God. Oh my God, we have contention here, Bridge. We have contention because
there's a lot of entries in this competition.
No, it's easy. First one was Joe M.E.
No, Kathy, it's not easy because Jones said 70 question and then Irene said 70. So I don't know. Both of them?
Well, I think we can take the question mark as a typo, benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
Good on you,
okay. It's very like Australia and New Zealand of us when we say 70%. Awesome. So well done, 70%. So let me a bit elaborate on this one. Wombat crossings are a very effective way of improving pedestrian safety. As mentioned here, if we do them properly, they are likely to reduce 70% of pedestrian trauma on the location. But remember, if you think about an area for pedestrians, then you need to think about the number of trauma across your area. And that would be your measure of success. So yes, we can improve one location, especially when you have a bottleneck on your pedestrian desired line. But we want you and we encourage you to think about mass action, think about the area one. Awesome. Now, think about this situation, and this is a situation I've been myself in it like in a few times, so that's why I have developed a sort of a strategic approach for this, and we have implemented it in Victoria a few times, and it works. So you're a strategic planner, you've been asked to think about your area and come up with solutions for pedestrians. Specifically, they said you have a couple of $1 million to spend on wombat crossing or race crossings, where do you want to put them? How you convince me that, these are the best locations? So I looked at this question and I thought that based on the literature analysis I did, especially work I did in my PhD, there are 3 elements that I need to consider if I want to be more strategic. Because as we all know, money is limited and we have competing priorities and we need to be convincing and be just really justifying our investments. So one element is road and street function. We cannot put wombat or race crossing on every road. Of course, there's the majority of the network that we can consider for wombat, but we need to which road and streets are more amenable, appropriate for putting wombat crossings. Also, we need to use wombat crossing as a measure of creating accessibility and connectivity, as you all mentioned. So we need to think about those pedestrian demand and desire lines across our areas and find those bottlenecks across these routes that we need to do something to improve pedestrian accessibility. So we need to think about that. Also, risk is important. We need to understand which part of the system is not really safe system compliant, is not safe, is more likely to create pedestrian trauma. So we need to treat those areas as well. So the intersection of these strategic lenses will provide. Okay, so I've got a question here quickly. Where the community wants them? So I think that question, Jason, is addressed from 2 angles, from road and street function and active travel connection. So we look at the demand, pedestrian demand, which is what community wants. And also we look at place and movement in the system. So where we have more place function in the road and street function, that means that you're going to have more schools, residential areas, shops, churches, community centers, which means where community wants those. So we're going to address that from those elements. Okay, let me go a bit further here. What does this all mean? So when we talk about road and street function, we talk about all those elements of the road in terms of land uses, type of roads, the stereotypes of roads, and see which one is more sort of amenable, appropriate for wombat crossings. But then we look at, the distribution of walking demand in our areas. But it's not just demand, it's also routes of these demands, because we all know that if you do that sort of, principal pedestrian network planning, there are some routes in your community that are more desirable for your pedestrians. Especially there are routes that we want them to be more desirable for our kids to walk to school. So we need to know them as well. Also, we have all those maps about the current history of crashes and injury, but also we have new novel ways of assessing risk. So we don't have to wait for crashes to occur, for people to die, for us to do something. So be more proactive. So these are the 3 elements. Okay, let us talk about more about them. So I'm going to share this quickly with you and then go and give you more details. So in Australia and New Zealand, we have been using the movement and place and road street design stereotypes, similar to what they did in North America in NACTO, about understanding what is the movement and place function of a road or a street in our network. So this is also comes from the road and street function approach in the Netherlands, which we look at the street and say, is this a place for people to be around, or is this a road for vehicles or heavy vehicles to just for productivity and mobility go around? So we need to understand that and the interaction between them. We're going to be talking about this in the second part of today. So I will tell you what this means and where we can put wombat crossing on them, and also prove in the where section, I'm going to talk about that. So pedestrian networks. So sometimes we have funds to do those kind of pedestrian network planning or principal pedestrian network planning. And this is an area that, we're going to look at the demand also not just the apparent demand. This is the distinction. We need to look at latent demand, okay? In the next few slides, I'm going to talk about how you can assess latent demand based on land use and other factors. So if you couldn't count your pedestrians, you still have tools to convince your politicians, your investment authorities, and your community that there is a latent demand. And also for road trauma, you have the risk maps, but again, I'm going to share more how you can do a more scientific job. Okay, I'm going to talk about movement and place later a bit, but let me go a little bit deeper for pedestrian demand analysis and forecasting. So I'm going to mention this is a job done by TMR in Queensland. They've done a fantastic job, and there's a document that I have shared you with in the LMS that tells you all the different ways you can forecast pedestrian demands. And these are going from simple to more sort of complex. This is comparison studies, sketch planning, direct demand models, spatial analysis, discrete choice, business probability models, and network models. So you're going to have access to the presentation, so you're going to see what all these mean. And also I have shared the report so you can know exactly what these models are. And all of them have different sort of strengths and weaknesses. But really quickly, the point and message here is, if you want to forecast pedestrian and walking demand in your areas, there are tools out there for you that can help you. You don't really have to all the time go out and count pedestrians if you don't have budgets. More and more, we have access to layers and layers of shape files of GIS and geospatial information that you can use in some of these models. So think about that. They are cheaper, more accessible, more defensible, and tell you about latent demand. I'll leave you with that. If you have questions, ask me, and I'm going to dig a little bit more here. Okay, pedestrian risk assessment. So this is area that I have spent like many years on. So how to assess risk. And let me differentiate here. When we talk about assessing risk, we want to say, of course, there's a history of trauma that we can access and use in our modeling. But relying on crash history all the time is not the best option, because that is reactive. You have to wait for trauma to occur, people to die, for you to justify interventions. We don't have to do that. We have models that can use some of these elements of the system and forecast future trauma. I encourage you to do that. What does OD assumptions mean? So OD assumptions is about, we would say, these are the origin and destinations in our system. What is the potential sort of, trip sort of demand between these origin and destination? We can make some assumptions that, for example, in this community, like this percentage of children going to be accessing such and such a school, so there's such and such demand. If you can make those assumptions, you can make them. Sometimes there are information that you can use, or there have been surveys in your councils or your area you can use. Having some of those assumptions will help. But having assumption is very basic and rudimentary, and if you don't have those more complex models. Of course, doing more complex models is better, but sometimes if you don't have time or money, we can use assumptions. That's what it means by OD assumptions. Okay, so this is like the CBD of Melbourne, and these are the crashes and the heat map of crashes and pedestrian crashes in this case in the CBD of Melbourne. Worst we can do is doing heat maps. There are several tools online that you can put geospatial data and they do heat maps. And I've done heat maps here, and you see like where my history of pedestrian trauma lies in the city of CBD of Melbourne. However, there are tools that you can build predictive models, and some of them are geospatial predictive models that use information on land use, public transport, vehicle traffic, pedestrian demand, and population and human factor and pedestrian driver characteristics. And they really nicely predict your future trauma, and we really recommend them. So I also want to share this with you. Again, apologies for going a bit too technical here. I know that we have different level of expertise in the audience here. So for some of you that have that knowledge about more models, so in Australia and New Zealand, we really encourage people to use RAP or ANRAM tools, or use basic safety science or empirical Bayes models. And these are the models that are statistically significant, which means that when you forecast pedestrian trauma, your forecasts are accurate. So if you want to know more about these, send me an email or send me a question here. I'm going to share with you more. Again, apologies for getting a bit too technical, but hey, look, here you are for learning, okay? So you might be asking this question in your head. Hafez, you talked about all these tools and all the things, but I don't have access to all of these. I don't have time for these. Teach me how to simply do the job. So for the rest of today, I'm going to be sharing very simple, straightforward steps and methods to do the job by what we have. Actually, I put myself out there. I went and investigated an area in Melbourne using the same methods to understand how can I strategically design for wombat crossings. Also, I have introduced a stepwise method that FHW, the Federal Highway Administration in America, uses and encourages us to use. It's a really good tool. I will introduce at the end of today that tool as well. So, very simple. Let me put this up and then I'll walk you through that. Okay, so we talked about 3 strategic elements of strategically designing for pedestrians and especially race crossings. And they were movement and place, which is function, pedestrian network, which is demand, and road trauma risk maps, which is safety and risk. So if you want to understand movement and place and you don't have access to one network in New Zealand or movement and place functions in Australia, so you can go out and survey your community's activities and detect high activity zones and areas. Focus on narrower, lower speed, less traffic, and more activity areas in your road network. Avoid high speed 60+ kilometers per hour and wide and multi-lane roads. And what is left is all the areas that we recommend you consider for wombat crossing. So very simple: activity, narrow, not much traffic or speed. Okay. In terms of pedestrian network, again, you can do that kind of surveys. And these surveys are becoming more and more popular. We can reach out to a wide range of community, understanding where they're going. For example, if you live in Victoria, we have the Victorian Integrated Survey of Travel and Activity. So in your jurisdiction, look for surveys for travel and activity. And usually these surveys give you information about who is going from where to where, origin and destination, what is their gender, age, like a household, all that information. And if they're walking or cycling or going by car, so it gives you a really nice demand analysis for your areas. And also, in terms of road trauma risk maps, you don't need to do those kind of like really complex models. Just look at the 5 years of data in your area. 5 years gives you a really good understanding. It covers, in my opinion, 70 to 80% of your risk. And do a really nice geospatial mapping, then collect information on the characteristics of your roads and speed and traffic and infrastructure, and then you can be able to identify risk and risky areas. So Raja says here, okay, beautiful. Thank you, Bridge. Let's, oh my God. So it surprised me. So I think we've reached the point that we talked about, the basics, Bridge. We can take a 5-minute break, go for a coffee break and come back and do the exercise.
Yeah, sounds good timing. We'll see everyone back here at 46 past whatever hour you were in at the moment. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. I'm ready to go.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah. So do we have the slides here? Yeah, awesome. So just a quick reminder. So we talked about encouraging the crew here to think mass action. And we thought that, yes, doing one wombat crossing or race crossing is important, but you need to think about all the elements of area-wide pedestrian intervention, safe system, cost efficiency, economy of scale, having the business case for action, and including the variety of concerns and demands in your society, especially like we had some comments here that people ask about, what about the community demand? What about the community needs? Exactly. Now, with that reminder, there are at least 4 reasons off the top of our head that we need to be able to justify investment. And it's good to have like those kind of like business cases to justify investment for pedestrians. First, we want to establish value for investment, and these are important for decision makers to actually convince themselves to invest money in this. Also, developing more convincing business cases are more like conducive to action and infrastructure on the road. One concerns we have had is like when you develop business cases for active travel, because sometimes the benefits are not really assessed or monetized, you might be losing the battle against some other well-established car-based sort of business cases. So that's one of the areas that you need to be careful. Sometimes it's good not to justify financially for active travel, especially in the beginning when you have latent demand. But again, like this is something that we want to be open with you. There are pros and cons of having financial justification or business case justification for active travel. Also, the other thing is sometimes we have an allocated budget for active travel or pedestrians. For example, in my case, we had $100 million over a number of years to spend on pedestrian and cyclists. And I had these very difficult questions, how and where to spend the money. And that was very critical. So sometimes having these business cases that have investment logic behind them, ILMs, is helping you to know where to spend the money on. And also when you have that sort of KPIs for your business case, it allows you to monitor and evaluate your interventions better. That means that when you do something, then you can prove to your decision maker and politicians and community that it worked for them to invest more. So you see the benefits and pros and cons. I'll just leave you with that and I move on to the next one. I want to use one case study from the UK, and this is the case for action or economic case for action that they used for promoting and investing into active travel. So what they did analysis of variety of elements of the system in terms of noise, air quality, greenhouse gases, journey quality, physical activity, crashes, economic efficiency in terms of decongestion, wider public finance considerations, and so on and so forth. And as you see, some of them are really relevant and in our cases. And as you see here, they prove a BCR. It's a really common term, benefit to cost ratio, that we use in some of these like investment justifications of 5.5, which is really good, which means for every dollar you spend on active travel, you get $5.5 benefit for your community. So again, I share this with you to give you some examples that you can find and dig and just like use in your investments, but be aware of pros and cons of financial justification for active travel. I wanted to share another comment here. There are several areas and benefits, as you also discussed in your first activity today, about benefits of active travel and walking. Not all of them are monetized. So for example, the amount of growth in businesses and their productivity, something that we need to measure more, or property value increase, or the cost to household, or infrastructure investment and maintenance, because when you do more active travel, you need to spend less on that. Mental health, you talked about social cohesion, social inclusion, transport choice, social equity, and quality of life. And because we know that safety, security, those kind of maladies of the transport system hit the low SES, low socioeconomic status people more. So that's equity. Okay, I'll give you another example before moving on. if you do these kind of analyses and you document them, you can use them in your community and communications with your community, with your politicians. It's sort of your comms and engagement. So this case is from Auckland, when they were sort of advocating for more investment into cycling, and they did the job, they did the analysis. 6 departments they talked about in terms of benefits to health, increase the space for other activities, not just cars, less pollution, fewer injuries, fewer hospital costs, and fewer household costs to your community. So doing these kind of analysis has another benefit of providing you with a toolbox of comms and engagement to encourage investment. Okay. This exercise is about you, and I want to stop sharing my Prezo and jump onto Menti. Let me share my Menti and I'll tell you what the exercise is. The one. Okay, so if you could please find your way to action learning number 3. So this course is about helping you do a better job in whatever you're doing. And we're going to use this information that you provide us now in actually helping us in the next 3 modules to provide you a better service. So think about why you're here. What is your case? Are you developing a program? Are you working on a project? Are you a decision maker? Are you a community engagement officer? Are you an advocate? What is your case? What are you here for? And put it here, and then we understand what you're here for. And Bridge, I want to take some time here, do a good thematic analysis of why people are here for. So I'm going to take a little bit more time here.
So 5 to 7 days to write up a paper about that. Worst case, a heat map. That's what you say.
Oh, Bridge. Love it. You're funny.
We do have, I think, quite a range of people from different backgrounds. Transport's such a diverse profession, right? It's so interesting. It'd be interesting to see what people say.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We're a strong team.
Yep, 100%.
Like, for example, like your background is what? Psychology, transport?
Yeah, civil engineering and then psychology.
So my background is civil eng, transport planning, and injury prevention. So we have overlap, and then
yeah. So we've got some project management. We've got a few advocacy words. We've got design people, road safety, engineering and design, project and program development. So different parts of the system, really.
So let me start to sort of, quickly put them together. Or maybe I wait. Maybe I wait a couple of minutes.
If people don't know how to get down to this board, scroll out in the Miro and then use your right mouse button to move around, and you can zoom back into Learning 3. You'll see a lot of action when you find it.
And hopefully Kathy is taking snapshots of these all B work happening.
Favorite thing to do.
Yeah. Maybe I do that as well. So, Bridge, give me a good smile. Got it. These moments in the course, I love them. Cool. So I think, Bridge, I'm happy to start to do the quick analysis of what's happening here. Sure. So I start with putting safety on this side. So we have including pedestrian safety, improved safety here, and then you have improving connection and network. I put it here with the parts, like which is like providing more activity options. Let me put it here. So what is this one? Engineering and design. I put engineering and design in a separate place here because assessing safe roads, that's it. I put it here. And what else? Developing the standards. That's beautiful. That I think we just I put that with the engineering and design.
Mm-hmm.
So let me put this away. What is this one? Design exactly comes here. What is this? Okay, sorry. And the reason I'm doing this is it's crucial for us to understand why people are here. It is a bit, I increase the size of this. So let's see. Wombat crossing are becoming more commonplace. They receive poor community feedback. Exactly, that's engagement. I put it. We have to implement. Okay, more. We put maybe here, developing silence here. Okay, so what else we have? Concerns, addressing problem arise from community. That's code here. Increase safety. Improve connection goes here. Understanding safety. Okay, beautiful comes here. What is the guidelines? Yeah. Technical guidance. Yeah. Transport planner. Beautiful design here. I want to get, what is this one? Yes, we love that. We put it here. System designer. What is this one? Okay, project management. I think I put it like here, but I need to separate them a bit. Ensuring we provide outcome for all road users. Let's put it here for the time being. Improving pedestrian cycling network. Traffic transport safety improvement. Beautiful. Engineering looking at opportunity to develop suitable pedestrian treatments. It's in the middle. Beautiful potential infrastructure goes here. Design better here. Improve safety here. Implementing here. Beautiful. Technical advice. Road safety comes here. Road safety guidelines. Beautiful. I think all of the above. Beautiful sport council. Fantastic. Advocacy here. What is this one? Good. Traffic engineering. I think we're getting the picture. Okay, advocacy. Beautiful. What I've left out. What is this? These are one. Program management. Okay, cool. So I think, great. My report back to you would be, we have people here who are here to improve safety, and safety, not just safety of one pedestrian, safety of the network or very specific location like intersections. So we want to understand what we can do for safety of people at the network and specific locations.
Yes.
Some people are here to develop guidelines, design and implementation guidelines. So here are to learn about designing, delivery, program, project management. Fantastic, we can cater that as well. We have people who are here to advocate. They find wombat crossing and pedestrianism and walking defensible and great. They're here to learn and advocate. We're going to have loads of messages for you. And also we have a big chunk of people here that are here to improve connectivity, pedestrianism, provide for different modes of transport. So these are some of the elements that we're going to be talking about in these courses and cover them. So I would leave these comments for you and Prue and Ken to have a look and understand who's here.
Lovely.
Okay, let's go to the next exercise. And what I need to do here, I need to jump back to my presentation. I promised to you that I'm going to be talking about movement and place in more details. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Awesome. A quick question for you to put in the chat room. Movement and place was related to which strategic aspect of our designing for wombat crossings? Movement and place represented which strategic aspect of our three-legged strategy? Land use and connectivity. Grace, thank you. Any other comments? Road function, yeah, that's exactly right. So it's about road and street function, and movement and place is the understanding of the interaction between road, street, footpath, land use, and that environment. So all good. So what's happening here? So in the movement and place function, the concept is about having a look at a part of the system and decide which element of placemaking or placeness is more prominent, or mobility. We need to consider a variety of road users for that. We need to consider pedestrians and variety of shape and forms of pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, buses, passenger cars, shared cars, heavy vehicles, again, in their variety of shape and form, and using the demand and need for all of them, because we need all of them in a community, in a healthy, productive community, and understand this road should be serving what function. The clearer we are about the function of a road and a street, the better we can design it, the more self-explaining the road is, the less crashes we have, and the better function we have. That's the concept. Where you can read about this, a variety of documents in Australia and New Zealand, or road and street function hierarchy in the Netherlands, which is some of the forerunners of this idea in Europe. Okay, so if you look at this system, so P means place, M means movement. So we go from low place and movement to high movement and high place. For example, a city hub. Think about a Shibuya city in Tokyo and that scramble crossing. That's a quintessential city hub. Think about your local streets and your local residential street. That's a quintessential low place, low movement, but designed for life and people. Again, very specific function. And we have designed the road and street families. They come from New Zealand, so thank you, our Kiwi brothers and sisters. And we use that. We have put definition of these street families for you to have a read and better understand them. But I have an exercise here for you. Let me quickly jump back to Miro and see if we can create another B work here. So let me share my screen. Cool. So I'm going to just focus on the urban movement and place framework. And you have the definitions here. You have the street family types here. I want you to tell us where we can put wombat crossings, which roads, streets, off-pass you can put wombat crossings on. And then I'm going to ask you why. We have some artists here.
If people click on the plus sign down there, more apps, you get some stickers and emojis, just saying.
Yeah, like let me show them. If you click on this, more apps, it gives you more emojis, and you can choose and put there. Beautiful. Powerful. Yes. I think let me sort of, tell you first, we're going to be talking about this element of the training in more details in the WHERE module as well with Prue. But very quickly, when we look at the movement and place framework, except for really high speed urban connectors, especially roads that have speeds like more than 60 kilometers per hour, the other places we can think about and consider wombat crossing. The reason we don't recommend wombat on high speed environments is because zebra crossings are shown to become a sort of a death trap, because they give sense of security to your people. And if you don't manage the speed and the speed is high, they become death traps. You might say, Hafez, is there a solution? Of course, there's a solution. If you have a 60K environment or a 70K environment for that matter, or higher speed, and then you have school children crossing the road and you need to do something, you have considered that putting like, underpass or overpass, you don't have money for, and still you want to do something. Of course, you can think about speed reduction, bring down the speed temporarily, using variable message signs, narrow the road on that specific location, increase lighting and road marking, put dragon teeth or other sort of speed management facilities, do something to reduce the speed operationally and practically, and then you can put wombat crossing on. So the answer is yes, but. Cool. So you get the message. I am happily jump into the practice. So for this practice, I'm going to put myself in your shoes, and I'm going to put you in my shoes, and I explain how it's going to work. Let me, Bridget, do we see the slides here? Okay, yep. Beautiful. Sure. So in this exercise, I am a transport planner sitting in my office, and you are my manager coming to my room and say, Hafez, we have this urban area in this suburb in Melbourne. I want you to go out and do a strategic investigation of where to put wombat crossing or pedestrian safety and activity improvements in this area. And the purpose of doing this exercise is three main things. I want us to empathize with the role of a transport planner, understand how the brain works. Also, I want you to really observe what I'm doing and find ways that you can improve my job. I'm just a grad. I need to learn. So you're going to observe what I'm doing and tell me what aspects I can do a better job. In previous courses, people have identified several areas, to my embarrassment, that I can do a better job. So please do that and conceive how to develop a mass action pedestrian. So I'm going to share how a mass action can be developed. Okay, let's jump into it. So we're going to go to Melbourne. We're going to go to Caulfield area and near to Caulfield railway station. And there is Caulfield railway station here, and there is Lloyd Street Primary School on the right corner side. And they have asked me to go there and have a look at this area and see what I can do for specifically school children, but generically for everyone else. So this is the problem they gave me. So when I looked at that, I live in the CBD area, I jump on the train, I right away go and jump off the train station. I look at the area around, I say, okay, maybe I start to have a walk around. So I designed a walking route, if you will. I thought that maybe I walk all the way from Lloyd to the station. I take several different routes and I do sort of, meandering to really understand what's happening with the function, demand, and risk. So this is what I saw. Like, I took a few photos for you to see. So when I started my journey on that day, I walked through a 40 km/h area. So it's a residential. I look around. I noticed that, speed is a bit sometimes higher than 40K, but that's okay. I'm thinking about function. So it's just like a narrow road, but I didn't really like the gun barrel look of the street, but hey, what can you do? But then I put this photo because I want you to see that, these items go hand in hand. I wanted to see a 30K, but I didn't. So then I moved on, and then I saw a sort of arterial road. So we have trams here, we have a wider road, we have shops, community centers, banks, that kind of sort of shopping strip feel that you see on hopefully your daily basis. Walked a bit further, then I started to enter a new and different environment. Here it's more high speed, is 60K, it's becoming more and more like arterial network for mobility, to providing access to highways in the vicinity. So I see more cars, more speed, even heavy vehicles, big ones. And then I crossed a major intersection and I entered the university area. In this case, the railway station is surrounded by shopping strips and a university campus. So you have Monash University. And when I go a bit further, closer to the station, you have the Station Street and a really nice vibe for pedestrians, lots of cyclists, some facilities for them, which is the end of the trip. So when I saw that, then I quickly went and just like did a quick analysis that, hey, look, if I think about function, what I have here, I have local street function, I have an activity street, I have connector function, a transition between connector to city hub and a city hub. So cool. This gives me a good understanding of function. I had access to a street design sort of guide, so I could look what kind of stereotypes are more common for these street family types. So I could know what is not right, what is wrong, what could be improved. But I had a good feeling about the function of the roads and streets in this area. I didn't have time to go around the whole area, so it is just a sample. Cool. Then I thought about demand. So for demand, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any pedestrian counts. I didn't have a sort of principal pedestrian network data handy. So I didn't have much. So I had to go out and actually do some sort of surveys myself. Obviously, I didn't have time and budget to go on many different days or do surveys or like pedestrian counts. So I did something simple. So what I found is I looked at the land uses. In my mind, I thought that if I know land uses, they might sort of translate to demand. So the more sort of pedestrian walking attractive land uses, the more pedestrians. So what I found out is like in the city hub function of my network, you have a station, a university, shopping facilities and restaurants. So it means demand, 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 demand. In the transition section, we have a university. It tracks demands, but I don't know if all the students are walking there. There's a station, so they might be taking train. And I have residential in the arterial network part. Then I have tram stops, public transport stop stations, shops, restaurants, and residentials in the more shopping strippy side of the things. And in the local streets, I have schools, churches, residentials, and community centers. So it was actually a good understanding on knowing what's happening here. I thought about approaching some of these centers and see if they have any information about their the patrons, people who walk there or access there, but that's something else that I can use. One tip, many of the public transport facilities, especially stations, they collect data on the number of accesses. That can be used as a proxy for pedestrian activities. Okay. Then I had to look at crashes, and this is an area that I'm really interested in. I thought, okay, how can I sort of understand crashes? So first, I had a look at the 5-year history of crashes. And these were the crashes I identified. So I looked around and said, okay, we have a massive M1 highway, Dandenong Road, Princess Highway going through, and I see lots of crashes and incidents at the intersection here. No, I'm not surprised, high speed, high exposure, high volumes of pedestrians. And then we have some crashes in the transition section and access to the station. And in these shopping strips, again, because of number of people and number of cars, we see a lot of them. Not many of them in the local streets, but is it because there are no risk or speed is lower or there are no people walking around? So I did something else. I used my understanding of pedestrian crash risk, all the elements that contribute to pedestrian risk, which are speed, design of the road, layout of the road, human factors, other things that I know. And I did some sort of, quick analysis of which areas on my path in my network are more likely to create problem in future. It's not a risk assessment. This is just subjective, a subject matter expert thinking about risk. Okay. So The other things I did, I looked at the current amenities and facilities. So I thought, okay, I need to understand where things are. Like, are there any wombat crossings? Are there any curb extensions, any chicanes, any speed tables, any intersection traffic signal improvement for pedestrians, or other like factors for pedestrians? Where are they? So I found that there are 3 wombat crossings here and several other pedestrian facilities. Cool. Maybe I stop here, Bridge, and this is actually maybe the most important exercise of today. And I want to take some really good time here to understand how people can use their learnings today to improve my function and performance. So what I do, I stop sharing, I jump into Miro. We do the next exercise. Awesome. So if you could please find your way to action learning number 5. So the exercise is, we talked about 3 strategic aspects of designing for pedestrians: function, demand, risk. We talked about several tools. You talked about several concerns and things to consider when we're doing, facilities for pedestrians. I want you to think about what I've done in this quick exercise and tell me which areas I have not considered, how can I improve, and put it in the Miro. And then we're going to analyze that, understand how we can improve. So I'm hoping to receive some really keen observations here.
I think people are thinking and typing.
Yeah. And please be as open and honest. Just tell me what could be done better, and all of it.
So someone's already mentioned one of the tools you talked about earlier in the session. Okay, so that's good.
Awesome.
It's hard sometimes too, isn't it? Because you're limited by scope. Somebody else decides the scope. You might like to look more broadly or look at different things or spend more time collecting evidence, but it's not always within your control.
No, you're right. We can control so much.
Mm.
But then I think like one thing is, first, could you please repeat the question? Yes, the question, Sarishka, is think about what we have discussed today from different approaches and the strategic tools we have. Think about what I've done in this quick exercise and tell us how we can improve our investigation. What other elements you would have loved me to put in my investigation? What other information you needed to see as my manager to decide about pedestrian improvement in this area or putting wombats there? So it's just like you putting yourself in the shoes of my manager and helping me to do a better job.
I wonder if anybody's asked about engagement with local disabled people, about how they get around. Someone's mentioned age and demographic stuff.
Bridge, somebody actually mentioned that in the last course. So that's on people's mind, exactly.
Yeah.
So similarly for this exercise, Bridge, I will be sort of, going through comments and try to sort of, analyze them in different sort of themes. Then based on the themes, I'm going to sort of, go to the next exercise, which is understanding what can be done for pedestrians and just like get more ideas. But then by doing this thematic analysis here, I will allow people to think about very specific solutions for the problems they have identified. And after that, I'm going to talk about one method that is I suggest for doing investigations, and then I introduce Prue, and we close the course.
Some very thoughtful content coming through. It's great.
Yes. Okay. So let me start. I start playing with the things. What I do, I quickly put them aside so I can create a space in this corner and do a quick analysis. I don't know if we could have a way to understand who has made the greater number of comments so we could give them a prize. But I don't.
Sizes and everything, Hafez. Prize for the most insightful comment.
Yes, that as well. That as well. Yes, that was very thoughtful of you. I felt a bit foolish saying that. Okay, so people, if you want to make comments on the right. So we're going to use the left-hand side for doing a quick thematic analysis. So what I do, I bring out the comments here.
So what people are doing, if they're not sure, is grabbing a post-it note from the menu on the left over there underneath the arrow, sticky note it's called. You drag it over and you can type on it.
Yeah. So one aspect that we could have done a better job is understanding the desired lines for pedestrians, which goes back into understanding our pedestrians. Who are they? Are they uni students, school children, shoppers, elderlies, or community members who go into a community center, and all of them have different desired lines? So I put this comment under the theme of understanding mainly demand of your pedestrians and the type of demand. So I put it in the top, and we know that we're going to put demand here in the top. Okay. So I move this one aside. Okay, cool. Site distance is about engineering. I put engineering down here, and I would mention that there are several elements of design for Wombat Crossing. Its site distance is physical aspect dimensions, is about lighting, irrigation, and you name it. And in the how part of the course, we're going to be delving into the engineering design in deep, in depth. So great so far, too early to tell if anything is deficient. So this is, okay. My manager says I need more information. I cannot make a decision based on what you have done. So this is information collecting. I put it here as a part of more investigation. Safe system assessment for existing situation. So this is about engineering and safety. I put it here. Then you have survey of user ISQ. This is great, goes hand in hand with demand. This is exactly what we talked about. Who are they? Goes back to what Bridge mentioned, and also Bridge is going to talk about. Who are these people that we're going to cater for, and how we're going to understand their demands and their needs. We go this one. So school and university travel survey. Okay, fantastic. So one of the things that is coming through right away are surveys. And if you have surveys of travel and activity, as we do sometimes in Melbourne, you can use them for your purposes. Learning from reviewer professionals. That's how I go to with information, which is like relying on subject matter expertise. Sometimes people know and they've done it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Traffic data is about information and data. I put it here. it also can be related to demand, so I can put it somewhere between information and demand. Opportunities to use existing features. That's fantastic. I put it close to information because that talk about current facilities available. Consider old local land use, not just a school and transition. I put it under demand, very relevant point. And we need to find ways to include all our communities. Bus routes need to consider. I put it under information and close to demand here with traffic data. And you see, if you notice what I'm doing, and this is something that I would recommend you do it with your teams and your managers. These kind of thematic analyses actually really provide you a good roadmap of activities and investigations. In the last exercise of today, when I'm introducing a stepwise method from the US, you're gonna see how these kind of analyses have been used to provide those kind of guidelines. Origin destination is demand. I put it here. What other road you would be benefit from? It's mainly about who and how. I put it between surveys, demands, and information. Fantastic. How to balance demands. So it's fascinating. I need to mention Bridge. Even if we box things into something called demand, it's so multifaceted and lends itself to different kind of investigations that this is the empathy that I wanted to create with the job of a transport planner. So many questions, sometimes so little resources. So in this course, what we try to do is just give you the highlights and tell you, maybe you can live without some of these as long as you focus on these strategic aspects. So
maybe even making those limitations explicit would be a great outcome from this course if people have more awareness of what we don't do. We have to, that's kind of part of the role of engineers and planners, is to make investment decisions when the information isn't complete.
Exactly, and 100%. A city master plan, that's it, that calls to intervention and demand here. Customer complaints, fantastic. We have started to see engagement. I put it in a different area, and this is like one of the things that, I'll give you an example. Let me look at the time. Okay, in Victoria, during COVID, we did IMCIP, Inner Melbourne Cycling Investment Program, which is lots of pop-up cycle lanes across 5 different councils, around 100 kilometers of pop-up cycle lanes infrastructure. In one of the councils, we had to stop the project and we had to remove some of the infrastructures that were working beautifully in our opinion. Reason, the community didn't like it. Who was to blame? Us. We didn't do a good job in terms of community engagement. We didn't bring the community along. So I put that in a different sort of area, very important. Painful personal learning. Future land use goes to demand. Is the only paid connection demand route? I mean, that's demand. Also information. I put it here. Engaging with the schools. I love when you put more engagement. Latest demand comes to demand. Traffic movement counts is information. Demand comes here. Eliminating alternative routes too early. I put it here in terms of decision making and information for my manager. So my manager is not happy for me to sort of make those decisions too early without too much evidence. Use risk assessment, goes design. Understanding external travel surveys. So it's another observation. As you notice, the heat map is really focused on the demand. Even if many people come to our courses for design and learning how to design, people want to understand demand and know how important demand and a strategic analysis of that is. So I want to sort of mention that. Desired path comes to information and demand, and validated risk assessment, ANRAM. Thank you very much for mentioning ANRAM. There's someone here who knows ANRAM. That's really exciting for me. Determine pedestrian route based comes to demand information. Okay. Let me quickly do this. Concentrate high pedestrian volume. So maybe Bridge, can I ask you to help me here, because I want to sort of focus on other elements. I want to sort of really quickly analyze this into 3 themes of demand, engineering, and engagement, and see what comes out. And also, maybe I can ask you guys as well. You made comments. Please move your comments to these 3 areas: to demand, to engagement here, and to engineering design. Cool.
Should we put some labels on, Hafiz?
Yes, thank you. I will do that. So here I put demand. Here I put info. These are info that necessary for decision making that my manager wants to see. I put engagement here. And I put engineering here. That's fascinating. So one of the ways also that we can sort of use this data, because we are collecting data here for a purpose. We want to understand what actions you can take based on these information. So in the next exercise, I'm going to be talking about very specific pedestrian safety and activity interventions, but I would love you to think about also other intervention or activities that you can take, and then we're going to discuss that. So the picture is becoming a bit clearer. What I suggest doing, and Bridge, this is like a really good exercise for me as well. I'm going to sort of, analyze this information and see if I can produce some of this thematic analysis as course material for these people and for maybe the next courses, because that's, I think I'd see some really, really good information here. Awesome. So cognizant of time, and I want to spend some really good time on solutions as well. And I really intend to finish my material, Bridge, by 10:02. So it gives 10 minutes for introducing the exercise and closing the training today. So thank you very much, guys. It's so exciting. Put yourself in my shoes. Getting so much feedback and interaction from a participant here is just like better than drugs. And I haven't done drugs. So, oh God. So next exercise here. I have identified a number of pedestrian safety and activity interventions. And I want you to think about the area we discussed, think about the comments you made, and tell me which of these solutions you think are more appropriate or appropriate here. It might be all of them, or you might prioritize them. That's one exercise. Then I want you to think about any other things that you think you want to do this in this area. And with that question, I want you to be creative. Don't think about just infrastructure and speed. Think about policies, maybe institutional management systems, community engagement. So a bit broader. So start.
I would like to see some local councils who are looking at things at this kind of scale, similar to you in neighbourhood area. Why don't we all join up and advocate for speed limiters in cars. Or I just was inspired or triggered by your technology traffic calming option there, because it seems to me there's a lot more that we could do with technology that we're not doing because none of us are big enough on our own, but the professional community is pretty big.
Can I share 2 examples on that? So in the central cities of Melbourne, city of Yarra, Stonington, Port Phillip, and Melbourne have alliances, which means that these 4 central cities sometimes work together to do something very consistent, because sometimes the areas are intermingling. There's
Sure.
a St. Kilda road that goes through all of them. So that is happening in some areas. In the Safe Local Roads and Streets program in Victoria, we have encouraged local councils to work together and come up with project plans that covers more than one council. So Bridge, that's absolutely relevant comment. Thank you. Okay, so what I see is people are supportive of 30 kilometers per hour. Great. We are the milieu that talk about that. We want to go out and talk about it with more people. We might be converted. There are so many people out there that are not converted. We need to help them see the light. We talked about all the sort of crossing activities, signalization, traffic calming, and I see that you know them, you have tried them before, so that's great. I want to sort of have a quick look at other solutions you recommend. So let's focus on what else we can do. And this is an area that I want you to share with us things that you have done yourself, you have heard about, you have trialed. And I want you to think about not just speed management and infrastructure. They're good, but think more, bigger. What else? And I want to see a few things, hopefully, yeah. Yeah, race safety platforms, I love them.
One bigger picture thing I think about quite a lot is community hubs. So instead of people needing to travel for work into far away place, have a local community work from close to home hub that is near the cafe, and it has desks and internet and printing, and it means you get that social connection and everyone would walk there. We need big paradigm shifts affairs. Time is running out on this planet.
Yes.
We need to change the way we organize ourselves.
Can I also share something in the same lines? For example, in Melbourne area, we have designed 26 centers or central activity districts. So not just CBDs, CADs. And all of these CADs can be great community hubs.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a far stretch for people to imagine that kind of thing, right? We already have, maybe a toy library, or even a mobility hub with bus stops and electric car charging or something. Just go to the next step and the next step. And then I think it's just, walking is just a part of access, right? Like it shouldn't necessarily only be looked at from an infrastructure lens, like you just said.
So having said that, like we have somebody here mentioning community drive and driver education. Public campaign, public education, community engagement are key, 100%. Talking about flashing lights when pedestrian crossing. In America, they call it hawks. We have used it in a variety of ways. We have, what is called? We call them, what do we call them? Toucans? No. Anyway, so I remember the name. So we have used it, puffins.
Yeah.
So signalizing left slip, yes, engineering solution, coloring surfaces, tactical urbanism, placemaking, asphalt art, 100%. Do you really need cars on the same street as trams? Oh, I'll give you one information. So going back to that comment, we did an analysis of travel and trips in the CBD of Melbourne. 38% of travel in the CBD of Melbourne is done by trams. Another big chunk is done by the train loops. So do we need cars in the CBD of Melbourne? Maybe not. Walking, buses for school children, great. Change design priority for active, exactly. So we need to have stereotypes that prioritize pedestrians and cyclists when need be. Just ban cars from places. Great idea. We have done it during COVID. We just banned roads and streets to cars and they worked. More promoting of busy local and use local services. 100%. Very British of you saying that, but thank you very much. Separation from vehicles, 100%. When need be, we need to do separation, but sometimes we need to bring cars down and help them understand they are guests in this environment as well. Robust active mode plan.
Hafiz, we're losing your sound sometimes. You're getting too keen.
Okay,
away from your microphone. I like the example about hopscotch drawings and interacting art and play on the street. That's a really great way to, even to broker that conversation with community about streets being about more than cars and parking.
Yeah.
Who can argue with a child playing hopscotch?
Exactly. And
or an adult.
We have research and you can reach out to me and I can share the research. We have done evaluation of asphalt arts and they work.
We're losing your voice again, Hafiz.
Oh, sorry. What's happening here?
I don't know. It's when you turn sideways, it can't hear you.
Hello.
That's good. Just stay like that. Thanks. For another 6 minutes.
Okay. So
this is really good.
What I want to do is really quickly thank you very much for your contribution today. This is one of the more engaged groups I've seen in these courses. So thank you very much for your.
That's a euphemism for saying you're all very brainy.
You are. Okay, so I want to share one last thing, two last things. God, I need to rethink about my material. Okay, so this is the tool I was talking about today about FHWA, Federal Highway Administration in the US. They have developed this stepwise planning for pedestrians that has all the elements of collecting data, inventorizing conditions, analyzing them, select countermeasures, designing and consultation, and identifying opportunities for improvements. We have so many similar tools and plans in Australia and New Zealand as well. This is just one example. I encourage you to have a look. It sort of tells you how we can do a better job, even if you don't have all those tools and sort of, resources. Okay, so I just checked that if Prue is online or not. Prue, are you here? No, okay, so thank you, Kathy. So we have an exercise, an assignment for you to take home and do before the third module, which is Prue, which is rare. And Prue is one of the most exciting community engagers I know. And she introduced me to the idea of community design, community-led design, and some of those concepts. A fantastic operator, knows safe system, knows what to do for pedestrians, knows the community engagement, have worked with parents and school children, an amazing person. And she's asked you to do this exercise assignment for her. It's got 2 parts. You can find it in the LMS. You click on module 1 and you can see the exercise. So in part 1, just identify a typical walk in your neighborhood, around 500 meters or more. Walk the route and think about all the things I did today and all the conflict points related to safety, accessibility, and convenience, and map them. The first exercise. So very similar to what I've done. You know what you're doing, please do it. And for the second one, there is a survey about a certain area and certain case study. You need to go and have a look at, is it Bly, Kathy? So you go through Bly, and there is an assignment for you to understand where to put like, pedestrian facilities or wombat crossings. So do that survey, 2-part exercise, and finish it before module 3, hopefully way in advance, so Prue can analyze them. Kathy, is there anything else that I need to share about the assignment? I cannot hear you, Kathy.
We can't hear you, Kathy, even though you're not muted.
Yeah, Alison, the link is in the LMS, and when you open that, the link will be there. Yeah. No, that's okay. I think we've covered everything. So just go to LMS. If there's anything else we need to tell you, we're going to send you an email, but the survey and the exercise is there. Have a look and do it before the 3rd module, so you have given time to Prue to do the analysis and report back. So having said that,
Kathy's showing everyone where it is there.
Okay.
It's our assistant, Kathy, showing you. Any questions, or if you're having trouble with that, email the people who you got all the info from, probably Kathy, and you'll get some help. And that is Australia.
So
zooming in on an actual wombat.
Bridge, let me take a quick moment to thank my participant and audience today. So if you lost my voice or you couldn't hear me properly, or I was quick, or my really thick Iranian accent, so thank you for your patience. I really encourage you to think about this material and use it in your daily work, and thank you for the opportunity and your time today. Send you love and camaraderie.
Thanks very much, Hafez. It's been, like I said, a really great session, really engaged group, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all so we can talk about the who of raised crossings on Friday. If you've got any questions or thoughts that occur to you in the meantime, if your mind wanders, bring them along, because we like interaction between the different modules, and they're all got a lot of overlap. So yeah, we'll see you all on Friday.
I'll see you all. And thank you, Bridge, for your terrific, and Kathy, thank you for supporting us here.
Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.